Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to Building Blocks, where we program Minecraft mods live on camera, and things go wrong, but not usually quite as wrong as they did last week. So, let me explain. If you can see the VODs on Twitch, you'll notice that the last Building Blocks stream was 1 hour and 46 minutes long. Now, I knew going into it that it was likely to be, like, shorter than most. It wasn't planned to be that odd of a number. I was thinking, like, probably 2 hours was about the length it should have been. What happened was, we tried to implement a brand new kind of recipe. You think of crafting recipes, you think of brewing recipes, you think of furnace recipes. These are mixer recipes. And we did pretty well with that. We got to the point of actually being able to, I think, put an egg in and out came a ender pearl because it was just a test recipe, that kind of thing. And then I quickly added in some code to automatically generate a cycle of recipes for all of the different kinds of alchemical vial. And if you look at the code, that includes a for loop, much like this one. In fact, this exact one just reworded, more or less. It was only for Tanglefoot at that point, so it was just brewing once. And it was very simple: damage equals 3, damage is greater than 0, damage exactly the same as it is here, plus plus. So that loop ran, adding 1 to damage until damage was no longer greater than 0. Can you see what maybe happened the second I ran this code? If you can't, what happened was that damage tried to reach the absolute maximum value of an integer in Java so that it could roll over and then become 0. The maximum value of an integer in Java is a little over 1 billion. Which is a bit more than the 3 we intended. Now, every time it did that, inside of the file system, this is an actual place in the actual files, I can go and find it, that kind of thing, it generated a file. Just like these, right here. Each of those is about a kilobyte in size, which means that 1 million of them is equal to a gigabyte. 1 billion would therefore be equal to a terabyte, also known as the entire size of both of Elemental's hard drives. Which I'll tell you right now, do not have a terabyte of space in them. not anymore. So what happened then was XSplit noticed that it was having difficulty saving the VOD, so it stopped streaming, and then it kind of noticed that it has some space, possibly because when you have several million kilobyte files, the file system struggles to actually recognize them, because it has to go through and count them, and it takes so long that the process just hangs. So it would boot up, thinking it had space, have trouble saving the VOD, stop streaming, repeat. So there was like a 15-second clip, I think, after that 1 hour 46. You might then think, oh, well, that's straightforward, you'll just hit delete on the folder for the recipes, right? And the answer is yes, except that with several million files, well, when Windows tries to delete something, it has to take stock of what it needs to actually, like, delete. It has to pull up a full-blown registry so it knows that it can delete everything that it's trying to delete. So that was the first thing I did, and the next morning, it still hadn't actually started deleting anything. So instead I had to go into the command line and call a remove directory command, which has no such accounting. A lot more dangerous to use if you get the target directory wrong, but I left that going. And 72 hours later, they were gone. But in the course of that, because there's no accounting in the remove directory command, and I couldn't load up the entirety of the folder because Windows would just give up on its file system at that point, I had no idea how much time there was actually left in that entire procedure. It ended literally 90 minutes before my last stream, my Saturday stream, the Carousel. So I didn't even know I was going to be able to do that. In the course of that time, the file system was so utterly smegged that I could do basically nothing. I couldn't even boot Eclipse here, because it would try to recognize the contents of that folder and immediately crash. I couldn't even tell it to switch to a different workspace. So, yeah, I couldn't record, I couldn't edit, because anything that involves file storage, basically, yeah. I even had trouble playing Sea of Thieves, but thankfully didn't have enough of that problem on Thursday, so I got to do the Shores of Gold arc finale. That was nice. But yeah, 72 hours just deleting files. I still don't actually know exactly how many it generated. I know it didn't generate an actual billion, because the process for generating them in Eclipse didn't get to complete because Eclipse froze and crashed. But I know it was somewhere in the vicinity of 6 million. Somewhere like that. I'm not 100% certain. 6 million is about the highest value I saw in the course of that, because thankfully, all of the files had a name that indicated their damage values, so I could use them effectively as a progress marker. But, boy. And that is just an extremely simple error. I've definitely made that error on this show before, but in the worst possible place. But anyways, now it's fixed. Now it automatically generates these recipes for all of the vials. There's ones for holy water, which shouldn't actually exist because you can't make a holy water solution. It's just crafted directly from a holy symbol and water bottles. But it's there. If somebody hacks up their data, like an item data, then it's there. It just runs through, generates 3 of them, no problem. So we can craft up an alchemical vial for Alchemist's Fire, and it'll just spin until it gets to like the end part, and then it turns into a full solution. Yay!
It's already 5 whole months. What?
Wow. Glad to have you around, Aluka. There's a couple more things that I've done. So let's see. In terms of, just like user-friendliness, I guess, I was certain that this was already a thing that happened. But now, if you have various equipment installed, you can use dispensers to put water from buckets or bottles into a cauldron. You can also use the dispenser, I think I added that, so you can use the dispenser to actually remove water from cauldrons using bottles as well. Again, I was certain that that was already in vanilla, but apparently not. That just makes things a bit easier to automate, so yeah. Let's see, change my mind? Sure, I'll empty it. Right. After I did that, I had solved all the problems with the mixer, so now we also have recipes for the centrifuge. There's not a whole ton of them, and they are mostly just taking storage blocks and breaking them down. But they're there, and they work wonderfully. I actually contacted my grandfather, because, fun little fact, my grandfather was a metallurgist, worked mostly with metals, but, and that's like the closest I could possibly be to like being related to an actual living and breathing alchemist. I asked him if he had any ideas of what you could actually like use a centrifuge for in metallurgy. Got a couple from him, so we have a new item called milk fat, which is not currently like textured or anything, but there nonetheless. We also have this third new kind of recipe called advanced smelting, because the standard vanilla recipe for furnaces, let's see if I just grab it. Let's see, abstract cooking recipe, it takes an ingredient, And ingredients are wonderful. They allow you to use tags, they allow you to do a whole bunch of fun stuff, but what they don't allow you to do is specify MBT. MBT data is the only thing that separates every potion, every splash potion, every lingering potion, every alchemical vial solution. So, I had to implement this, and that's a bit more tricky, because my options were either I implement my own furnace, which would have given me nice reason to make a Bunsen burner, I will say, or I had to hack into furnaces and make them have two different kinds of crafting recipe. Turns out the second one is actually easier, because I just did a bit of a mix-in, so now whenever the system tries to get furnace recipes for a given inventory, we actually run through and check our advanced furnace ones as well. So if there's a match to the advanced furnace recipes, it will override anything in the generic ones. This means that literally, like, any modded furnace will also be able to do these, which is actually really nice. If it does all of the same recipes as a regular vanilla furnace, it'll be able to do this as well, because they grab from the same thing. So that means that we can actually put our fully shaken alchemical vial solutions into furnaces, and they'll get the right thing. I was quite confused when I put a fully shaken alchemist's fire solution in and got a tanglefoot bag. So I spent like 3 hours last night solving that. We have a list of things that we could implement today, or at least attempt to implement, because I went ham on my sourcebooks to try and find fun things that could maybe come in handy for if you're playing Minecraft and are using alchemy of any sort. So, most of these are, to some degree, offensive. These are like combat-based kind of things, but a few of them, not so much. Acid Neutralizer and Vial of Acid both require that we actually implement acid, which is a thing we need to do in various oddities, not equipment. So that we can't do today. We got Quicksilver, which is like Silver Sheen, but it's craftable and has a shorter duration. We have Ghost Blight, which lets you actually hit people that are incorporeal. We have Trollbane, Flash Pellets, which are basically just a flashbang. We have Lock Slip Grace, which requires that we implement locks. We have Firmament Stone, which could be an interesting thing. It's basically, it's like a day-night sensor, but it's also a held item. So you hold it and it tells you if it's day or if it's night, essentially. We have Ghost Wall Shellac, which is a placeable which prevents phasing creatures, like ghosts and whatnot, from passing through a block, which means that you can actually, like, prevent incorporeal creatures from passing through an object. We have Lava Stone, which turns lava into stone temporarily, a la Frostwalker for water. Very straightforward, helps you get across lava lakes a lot easier. Colored Torches, and Dark Vision Powder, which is a placeable dust that only renders for creatures with dark vision. So it glows very brightly, but you can only see it if you're actually, like, if you have night vision on. I have also implemented a few things, so yeah. Anti-ghosty warding, yeah, exactly. So that'll probably just be like a tile entity. It is. I do like the book I drew that from. I think that's from Arms and Equipment. Specifically mentions you probably want to also put it onto the floor and ceiling, or else they'll just go under the wall and up again. It doesn't prevent burrowing. Doesn't prevent like breaking blocks. Just specifically makes it functions as a block that incorporeals can't go through. In short. Which is fairly easy, we just tag it as unfazable. Pretty nice. Anyways, let's have a look what we got. Enough rambling from me. Okay. So, here's what we've got in terms of alchemy so far. We've got Holy Water, Antitoxin, we have Alchemist's Fire, the Tanglefoot Bag, we have the Thunderstone, which doesn't currently make a big bang, but we're working on that. Here we have what's called Healer's Balm. This is a very low-grade healing item, but it has some special properties. So Healer's Balm doesn't currently have a recipe, but what it does is it will heal 2 health. equivalent to 1 full heart. If it does so, it will go through all of your active potion effects, good or bad, and it will have a 13% chance of removing 1 negative status effect. So if you have a whole bunch of buffs, say from like a nearby beacon or something, and then you get poisoned, you can actually like apply Healer's Balm, and there's a 13% chance that it will remove the poison. It only removes 1 per consumption, and it's only a 13% chance, but it will remove any negative status effect. So, pretty handy. Has a benefit over a regular healing potion. Pretty nice, I think. And it's craftable. You don't even need to go to the Nether for it right now, at least. Let's see. We also do have Lava Stone. So, I have some lava over here just to display that. I had to add a few more functions to the tossable vial and the vials themselves to get this working, but there we go. Now, it's not actually meant to put, like, ice here. It's just, like, bleh. Better than milk, which just removes everything. It's a plus or minus kind of situation. It's only a 13% chance and only ever 1 status effect, so it's, like, in terms of getting results, milk is way better. But if you're only specifically looking to get rid of a negative status effect, and also you have a bunch of missing hearts from damage, then Healer's Balm is pretty good. Theoretically, it can stop you from being petrified. Like, that's pretty nice. But yeah. Very straightforward. And then it functions... It functions much as it looks. Exactly like frosted ice. So eventually it will go away. Oh, and yep, you can see it breaking up there. So, if you're looking to make a quick escape across a lava-like pool in like even the Nether, yeah, you can do this. I'm probably gonna make it look a bit more like basalt, but yeah. There's that. Was there anything else I've done this week? I don't recall. I feel like I haven't. Yeah. But okay, so yeah, we have in here a whole ton of water bottles. Here we have a level 0 cauldron, which is to say there's no water in here at all. And if I click that, level is now 1. Because bottles will fill it 1 level. Very straightforward. And I've managed to do this in a way that does not override the existing vanilla behaviors of dispensed water buckets and bottles, so all grand. But yes, the milk fat, which as I say does not currently have an actual like recipe or item or anything, is going to be retrieved by centrifuging milk buckets. That'll give you an empty bucket and a value of milk fat. I haven't decided just yet, but milk fat can be used for the slime ball in most alchemical recipes. Now, they're what's called fixatives. So you do that, and that's 1 ingredient that you don't have to worry about getting too much. So just find a cow, have a bucket, centrifuge the milk, you get milk fat. Honey bottles also work. Slime balls, the main thing. The next thing I want to do is try and find replacements for gunpowder, because gunpowder is also a relatively high expense thing to come by early game, and I like the idea that you can find alternatives for a lot of things in your little alchemy, kind of like alchemy hut or whatever. Anyways, the centrifuge did not work last week, so let's show off what that does. Like the actual mixer, it only has 4 inventory slots. I'm not 100% certain if the behavior you're about to see is going to be its final behavior, but let me give you just a bit more water, because I know you're going to be going through some steps here. I think this is fairly close to how it's going to function, but suffice to say it is mostly the same functionality as the mixer. So it keeps spinning as long as it's got at least something it can work on. In this case, it broke down the iron block into 9 iron ingots, one of which it held onto and processed further into 9 iron nuggets. As I say, I don't know if I'm going to keep that. I might have it, like, grab as many things as it can, or, like, all sorts of other stuffs, suffice to say. But essentially, this is for breaking things down. Very good for getting your milk fat, very good for turning your storage blocks into other things. Effectively, very specific very specific automated crafting. Fairly straightforward there. And that's combined with our new dispenser tweaks, lets us actually make this thing very heavily automated. Like, just get yourself a fairly straightforward dispenser-based, like, filler for water buckets or some such, and then this thing will run happily forever, more or less. So, ooh, I love it. I love having things that are small, aesthetic, but have just enough, like, automation capacity to be an entire industry in and of themselves. It's lovely. But anyways, I've showed off Lava Stone, I've showed off Healer's Bomb, or as much as I can, anyways. All of these have also had their actual visuals upgraded. So if we go to Vial, there is a new enum called Vial Shape, Bottle Bag of Rock being the current values, and that determines what model it uses in the item. So we can have all of our Thunderstone type items look like rocks, we can have all of our Tanglefoot bag items and such look like bags, that kind of thing. Does it work with all crafting recipes that take one item like logs into planks? It does not. It has to be specifically the centrifuge recipes. So right here. Which are not difficult to make, but it doesn't draw from the same thing as the crafting table, essentially. Phew. Let's see, that's all good. Yeah, there's the fixatives, right there. So, milk fat, honey bottle, and anything tagged as a slime ball. In your alchemical recipes. Everything that used those now actually uses that. So if I go to recipes for alchemist fire, you have gunpowder, redstone dust, a potion, and fixative, where previously it said slime ball. So now we don't have to find slimes in order to actually do alchemy. In short, we still need to find redstone, and we still need to find, presumably, creepers. So I need to think of a different way to get access to gunpowder. In theory, it would be nice if the entirety of crafting through alchemy didn't require combat. At all. Didn't even require encountering mobs. I'd love that. That would be grand. It's like, you can make these things, and they don't work as gunpowder, but they do work as gunpowder in alchemical recipes. Like, that kind of thing. It's like turning one thing into another thing that you can use for another thing. Yada yada. It's combuster butter. Oh, wouldn't that be interesting? Be interesting to make poisons this way, I guess. There's that. Okay. So, what do we think about how the mixer, or the centrifuge, currently works? The mixer is very much a one-to-one, so it's always holding the thing that it created, but the centrifuge, by its very design, is intended to frequently have more than one output. So, in the case of milk fat, it outputs a bucket and milk fat. That's two things. That's now, one slot is now going to require two. So, do we have hidden inventory inside of the centrifuge that is accessed, like, first whenever it's being extracted from? Or do we keep it as it currently is and have it just, like, eject any excess, essentially? Because it does check if it can actually process any of the products they create. That's how it decided to grab onto the one iron ingot, and then everything else got chucked out. And in that case, should the centrifuge, like, try to stock itself as much as possible? Or is it fine if it just, like, grabs the one item from a given process? What do we think? I'm just gonna have a quick check for what goes into black powder. Also known as gunpowder, but nonetheless. Let's see. Yay, history. Saltpeter, burned with a purple flame, providing a practical and reliable means of distinguishing it from other inorganic salts, thus enabling alchemists to evaluate and compare purification techniques. Accidental byproduct from seeking the elixir of life. Whew. Sulfur, realgar, and saltpeter with honey. Well, that's another use for honey, I guess. Next question. How do we define saltpeter? Bat guano. Deposited over thousands of years. So we would need to make guano, and we would need to make saltpeter, and then saltpeter could stand in for our gunpowder. I guess. Maybe that's how we do this. Sure, that's good. Fun fact, my granddad's name is Peter. Just as a dinky little coincidence. Like, these milk, fat, and such are do-nothing items. They're just, like, ingredients to other things, essentially. So we don't really need to care about them too much, except as including them in recipes. And let's make guano as well. I feel like guano should have some kind of effect, like if you've got a ton of it in your inventory, you stick to high heaven and things with, like, scent abilities can see you really easily, but haven't programmed those yet, so we won't worry about it too much. But okay, we've got guano and we've got saltpeter. So, if we combined guano and a water potion, shall we? So our water bottle, should we, like, turn that into saltpeter, or should we put that into a cauldron containing water and have that turn it into saltpeter? What's our recipe? What do you think our recipe is? Here. It might actually be worth having an actual item for guano, so it starts as wet guano and turns into dry guano. And then it can actually detect if it has been put into water, and then when it dries it becomes saltpeter or some such. That feels very tedious. But no one said alchemy was going to be straightforward. For right now, we'll just have our data generators get a new tag. We had fixatives. What are we going to call this? Detonators? Fuses? Combustibles? Explosives, I guess? Yeah, let's call it an explosive. Igniters? Detonators? Okay, and just like that. We have a list that includes all saltpeter as well as all gunpowder. So then we can go to our recipes. And anywhere that uses gunpowder, we can now ask to use our explosives. Just a little bit of expansion. Okay. I don't think you have any gunpowder. No, you're spider eyes and other things. Antitoxin is rough to make, it has to be said. But antitoxin currently only removes poison and wither, albeit guaranteed, unlike the healer spell. I'm probably going to be adding config to that so that you can have it remove other things. But for right now, that's what I got. It probably would have been easier, actually, to just tag saltpeter as being a gunpowder, but I don't want you to actually be able to use saltpeter to make TNT, is the thing. Saltpeter is meant to be low grade, unsuitable for purposes like that. That's my excuse for going at this roundabout way. Okay, run the data generator. No loops, so we shouldn't have any Boolean files turning up. There we go. Refresh over here. Explosives. Contains all forms of gunpowder and all forms of saltpeter. So now we have a little item that we can plop along from whatever we like and use that in our recipes. In fact, we can even boot up right now and try to make some alchemical vial of alchemist's fire. Purely using two explosives, two explosives, a redstone, a water bottle, and a fixative. And it's fun to remember that whilst we're doing this might seem very heavily involved, but the major thing is that the alchemy side of equipment and various equipment is meant to be things that you do before the engagement, before the adventure, that kind of thing. It's like you're spending like a day or two inside of your alchemist's lab, putting together tools and objects that you think will come in handy for the road ahead. So it's very heavily focused on the planning, even if what it does is not necessarily 100% like big deal. Okay, saltpeter, and we can also take milk fats. We also need a second saltpeter. Now that I'm thinking about it, we need a redstone dust and a water bottle. Literally any potion will do as long as it's a drinkable potion. I highly advise that you use water bottles. It's a shortcoming of the crafting recipes, I'm afraid, because they use ingredients. But there we go. 2 saltpeter gets us alchemist's fire solution. And if we check the ghost of it, we can see those cycle through. So yeah. Perfect. Now, I'm going to do something that might make a lot of people hate me. Because we want to get guano to try and turn it into things like sulfur, to turn it into saltpeter and such, or maybe we can mix it. Maybe we can put it into the centrifuge and it turns into sulfur. Who knows? But in order to get guano, we need to make bats drop an item. And whilst we could just add it to some kind of theoretical bat loot table, it would make far more sense for them to drop it whilst they're alive. Which is to say, we're going to turn bats into chickens. The forbidden alchemy. So, to do this, we're going to need to mix in. So, entity bat mixin. And we're going to go to their living tick and basically re-implement the code used inside of chickens for whenever they drop eggs. Hey Don Birdie, how you doing? Okay, so mixin, if you didn't know, it's code injection that lets us crack into existing code and make it do things as we like, and it is probably far too powerful to be interested to the likes of me. But here we are. Okay, so let's bring up the bat and let's bring up the chicken. And we're going to need to find the part where you call for an egg. There we are. Living tick. We're gonna make them poop. That's the power that has been entrusted to me for some reason. So inject into the method called living tick. I think it's V for void, not 100%. the... let's put it on the return. Okay. So first, let's make this into a bat, because we can trick this into thinking that we're a bat by actually, like, casting it a few times. So, bat entity, object, this. Now we have a bat. Good. Worlds. Gives us access to all of the fun features here. So, let me just drag this over here a moment. There's some extra functions here from chickens that we don't need, like whether they're riding anything. So if not world, that is remote. And minus time until next guano, I guess, is lower than or equal to 0. Then do the droppage, I guess. Make the plop. Shadow some variables, I believe. So let's see. Shadow random rand equals null here. Okay. Time until next guano does not currently exist, so private int time until next guano. There. I think that is per bats, but I guess we'll find out if we spawn a whole bunch of them and all of them drop guano at the exact same time. As I say, this is probably way too much power to have been entrusted to me. Add that to our mix-in list. Okay. Here we go then, I suppose. Let's give this a shot. I wonder if I should go... Would it be too much to have a miracle elixir craftable in alchemy from bat guano that like cures petrification? Or is that way too much of a tale of how much of a dweeb I am? What do we think? We should be able to just extend from the entity. Do we not have get RNG in here somewhere? Because when we did, apparently we don't. Okay, well, living entity. Yep, there you are. Doesn't matter what it returns here. Because it'll just, it basically is just a teller to say we would like to access this thing. Okay, there we go. Right, that should cheer that up a bit. Can I get bats to poop? Let's find out. At least bats will now have a purpose. Like, the only function of bats previously that I've ever found was their noises make it easier to find caves. That's it. And that's definitely not going to be a problem in the future. Okay, so there's Guano. Doesn't currently have a name or a model yet, but let's make a bunch of bats. Grab a torch or some glowstone or something here. Okay. So we have 9 bats in here. And what we are looking for is for them to randomly drop an item that will look like a giant black and purple cube. I can just get a nice view on these. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I presume the one's over here somewhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, there's 2 there. Okay, yeah, we've got all 9 of them. They're all just hanging. They're like hanging. Should I get to only poop if they're currently like sat at a place, or should I let them poop on the run? God, we're not even out of the first hour of the stream tonight, and I've already programmed scat. Well, let me see. We set it to at most 6,000 ticks, I believe. 6,000 over 20 would be 300. That's 300 seconds, so that's 5 minutes. I'm beginning to think I should maybe have set this to be a different value, but here we are. God, they're weird looking when they're like when they're not really doing anything. I do appreciate the effort with the wings. Wings are a very weird thing, very tricky to get right in Minecraft, I will say. You kind of need to be at huge scale, and even then it's mostly like reptilian kind of wings. Feathers and such are just not gonna work. Because we only really perceive something as a wing when it's like flapping in a nice kind of like bendy kind of motion, but when you have a very small number of cuboids to do that with, it looks terrible. So let's see, if we get to time for my break and they haven't pooped, then we know we've got stuff to do still. While that's going, I'm just gonna quickly look at the code. Let's see, if it's not remote and time to next 10 less than or 0, then do the thing. Theoretically, they should have done that already, then. Oh, wait, no, it's 5 minutes plus up to 5 minutes. Well, heck. Okay then, yeah, these guys are holding it in, apparently. And Luca has redeemed 20 spots, yay. One thing I'm gonna open up is Britannia, because Britannia has a thing for bees. That's a sentence. Yeah, it gives a new goal to bees, essentially, which adds new variables that I probably want to actually make sure is there. It looks, yeah, it looks fine here to me. Yeah, okay. Right, let's just make this like a minute. Let's see, that would be 20 per second, so that'd be 1,200, I think. I can just reference ticks per minute. There. And it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough and weird here. But let's see. I'm also just going to put a thing in here so that I know this is actually running. Is it Z, actually, for voids, or is it Z for boolean? I don't know. Does bad entity even have a living tick? It has a tick. In theory, there is a possibility that the second that we boot in, all of them will poop. All of them. Every single one. So this could be a spectacle. 9 bat poos on the ground. Oof. God, what if I made it... If I made the guano a special item, I could have it drop and then detect when it's on the floor and turn into a block. And then I could have that actually, yes, Aluka, yes. And then I could have that actually, like, accumulate over time. So we could have, like, a block of guano. Oh. And you just, like, crack open... like crack through a cave wall, and it's like piled to the ceiling with guano because you haven't found it for months, and it's just been like near your base or something. Oh, that's actually a really entertaining idea. Not gonna lie. We might do that. We might spend all of tonight just coding guano physics. Okay, right. I'm gonna do some squats before I go quite into that degree of madness. And I'll just plunk our bats into this scene so you guys can still see what they're doing. Right. I suspect that they're not going to drop at all. Here we go. So glad you managed to catch Poopstrap. Yeah. Yes, here's the outfit for today. Red isn't usually my color, but it works okay. I don't wear this skirt quite as much as I do the other one because it kind of has the effect of being so long enough that it just looks like I have a very long torso, and I don't have very much height to spare there, so like. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Whew. Okay. And we have no poop, so we have more code to do on poop. But I'll be back in 10 minutes. See you. welcome back everybody to a stream that I may at some point deny ever having hosted, because we are implementing a couple of nitty-gritty little like crafting component items effectively to make alchemy more viable in the early game and such. And one of those things that we need is an alternative to using gunpowder, because gunpowder requires that you fight creepers. In early game, you probably haven't encountered creepers, or maybe you have more pressing uses for gunpowder than making alchemist's fire and such. And gunpowder in reality is frequently made from guano, which comes from bat droppings. So we're currently programming bats to poop. So we start by getting them to actually produce an item. Right now we're trying to get them to actually drop our guano item in very much the same fashion as chickens do. We were having a little bit of a problem there with checking if this was actually running at all, because in theory if it starts at 0 they should poop the second the world loads. So I've changed the target of the mix-in, and I have made it specifically only bats, so it should now hopefully work. If it does, it will flood my console with running mix-in for bat. That's how we'll know that this is doing anything. Bat guano now has a lang, but it doesn't have an icon still, because that'll take way much longer than my break usually lasts. And we might actually be programming a custom entity for it, we'll see. That's just an entertaining thought. A block and an entity. Maybe. Depends how ancient bat cave we want to get, really. Like, just... yeah. I feel like it would be interesting to enter a cave and see bat guano. It makes it feel a bit more of an alive kind of space, but... Oh, yep, they poop. They pooped alright, they done did a poop. Now, the next question is... We don't have RNG tied to the next poop time, so presumably they're all going to poop again at the exact same time. In about a minute. Let's see if we can catch it. They poop glitches. No, they are pooping guano. If they were pooping glitches, it would be a solid cube, rather than a flat object like that. So give them a mow. And it should happen again. Yep. There we go. Okay. So next we tie in some RNG and make sure that they're pooping at individual moments, not all at once. There we go, 18 bat guano. Okay, so let's say get RNG, next int ticks per minute. Because we need this value to be individual. We don't want them all to be pooping simultaneously. That would be the most organized guano production workforce I think I've ever seen. Even Amazon doesn't have that kind of regularity. And then once we've gotten that step going, we will have to face the horrifying prospect of, do we want to make a guano block? Lord help me. Oh, heard one there. Two. Okay, they are pooping individually. Grand. Very fast right now, but that's fine, because we can change that number quite happily. Okay. Like, this will be what we actually go with. 5 minutes plus up to another 5 minutes. Whereas right now it's 0 to 60 seconds. But okay. Do chickens initialize that value at anything? Yes, they do. Okay. They initialize it in the exact same way that they can control it. Good. Good to know. There. But in our case, right now, we'll just have that be 10 seconds or something, I don't know. For right now. So we log in, it takes 10 minutes before it takes 10 seconds, and then they'll poop. All of them. Immediately. Again. Okay. So... bats will now occasionally drop bat guano, much like chickens drop eggs. How deep into this one thing do I want to go? Do I make a guano block and have guano accumulate underneath a bat, rather than appearing there and then going away in 5 minutes when it despawns? It would make guano much easier to come by, which is a plus. You don't necessarily have to capture a bat, you just have to go to a dark space and find where one was recently. Or at some point in the past, at least. But also, it would mean I have to program poop. Well, yeah, let's do it, let's do it. Why not? Might as well. Block guano. Here we go, everybody. Hold on to your butts. I've made weirder things in my career, I feel. What is the material for... is it grass, I think? That's just the sound. What's the material for, like, gravel? That seems like the most obvious non-guano block that is most like guano. Sand and material color stone. Okay. Let's... I feel like more of a brown makes sense. Okay, let's make it brown. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to make an item for this. I don't think this will be an item you can get, but... I'm just adding it for the sake of building, I guess. God, somebody's gonna have some questions. There we go. Okay. Very straightforward. We're just going to create the block and then deal with everything else that comes after it. Oh no, it should be bat guano, not guano block, shouldn't it? Okay, and let's just make it resemble... For the time being, we'll just make it resemble gravel. It'll either look like gravel or it'll look like a missing block, but that's fine for this exact moment. Okay. So, let's first check to see if that has actually properly appeared. I think it should be. Yeah, it should already be right in there. Nothing else to it. Okay. This entire stream is going to be a significantly downward slope for me. So Lying, you've on live on stream, you've made programs that can analyze the interior space of an arbitrary structure made by a player and determine what pieces of it can be used for rooms. And you've made cyclical crafting like objects that can like turn one thing through a whole heap of things. What did you program tonight? I made bats poop. I made bats poop on the floor. Okay, what went wrong here? What did I miss? Wish I could tell you. It doesn't say. Okay, there's obviously, though, something I hacked here. So what does it say? Everything gets registered the exact same way, so that's not it. How about the spinny arms? Take a look at those. Nope, they're fine. For right now, can I just say block? Well, that's suffice. Shouldn't have any problems with that, but who knows. Or is the guano itself the... I guess it's just that. I guess the guano itself is that. I guess that would save us a bit of trouble here, wouldn't it? Maybe that's the problem. It registered the same item twice, I guess. That's probably it. Oh, I know there's a problem. Oh, right, yes, the mix-in. There. Fixes that up. Okay. Is our guano now a block? The item model will not have changed, by the by. It'll still be a flat missing texture. But now we'll be able to place it on the ground as a block. Waiting for the point where I program this, and because of how quickly they poop in the testing conditions, those bats in that room are just going to suffocate in their own scat. Oh lordy. Okay, getting back to creative. Thank you very much. Okay, guano. Yep. There we are. There we have it. Okay. Next. Give this thing a level. Which I guess very much is going to be like snow. Snow layer? Snow head layer? No. Snow block? Kind of. Yeah, layers. There you are. Scat has layers. Okay. Allows movement. Oh god, do I want it to be a slog to get through? To get through this? Oh, I could make this so incredibly horrible, couldn't I? Very easily. Right. Yes, it actually is very much like a snow block looking at it. Who knew? Minecraft had already implemented basically everything to make scat. Okay, we do want it to be transparent. Updating post placement. If it's a solid, do we want it to? See, I'm stuck here because if we remove the blocks from underneath the scat, the guano, should the block itself drop, or should it just break, creating more scat to like scatter? I guess. I think that's just what we'll do. We'll just have it break. Torch. Should have the thing I'm looking for here. So there's not a thing beneath it, then. Let's see, what is the thing here that I'm looking for? I think. Oh, they've made this very weird. Hang on, I'm just gonna, like, return world in dot get block state position dot down dot is opaque. There, has to be on top of an opaque block. And then let's see, where is the thing to remove it? There we are. So facing equals down and is not a valid position, then yeah, turns to that. In our case, I guess we should fill the state container, else this will complain as well. Okay. So now, whenever that happens, it should just break itself, essentially. Let's add remove block, or the random tick, rather. Does this need to tick randomly? I guess it does. That should just mean it goes away. Essentially. I don't know. Yeah, this will do for now, at the very least. Okay, run it. We're adding physics to guano, everybody. Right now it won't change its appearance at all, nor will it change its collision box, but it should at least have an internal value of level. Or layer, rather. I have to say, after more than 72 hours not being able to do anything because the file system was hacked, I'm more or less happy to be doing literally anything at this point in time. But this is not, I confess, what I anticipated I would be doing tonight. So here we are. Okay, layers 1. Good. So it knows it has a layer. So the next thing is that we need, we can either create a custom entity that is dropped instead of the item, or we can use mix-in to crack into the item entity, and if the contained item is guano, then do the thing, essentially. That's probably the best choice, I think. Yeah. Okay. Entity item. Or should this be item entity? Because bleh. Okay. I'm just gonna rename that because consistency. Okay, so if we go to item entity, there is a tick function here. And what we want to do is, when this would otherwise track, we want to check to see if the block that we're currently the block that the entity is currently in is a valid block for the guano to be placed, essentially, if it's a valid position. So to do that, we need to crack into the tick function. Okay, so let's see, there's a couple of functions we'll need to actually shadow here. Like get item, right there. So if get item equals ve blocks dot guano. I guess it needs to be viewer items guano. Did I not have a guano block? There you are. Let's refactor that to just guano now that we only have the one. Okay. Okay. So, if let's get our block position. Which is a thing we'll need to shadow in entity mix-in, thinking about it. And we'll also need the world, because we'll need to know where we are in it, what's there, and what sorts. Okay. If is valid position for our block. World, get block state, that position, the world, and our position. Then world set block state position ve blocks dot guano get default state. And then we can actually also say get item dot shrink 1. And if get item is empty, ci cancel. So it just doesn't do anything else. Okay, add that to our mixins. And now this should basically, whenever we chuck guano, it will immediately turn into a block because it doesn't know that its valid position requires things being below it. Right here it does, so it should behave. Either way, we'll find out. If we start the world and the first thing that we hear is bats suffocating, then we know what happened. Oh, and there's a problem. Oh, I evidently got the entity. Lock position, there you are, position. Is there not a getter for that? Should be. Ah, get position, not get boss, that's why. My fault. He said as though anything that happens on the streams isn't. Well. Arguments for fortune, Mojang, I guess. Here we go. Throwable scat. Well, not throwable, chuckable, I guess. I suppose I could make the bat guano item into something like a snowball, but that seems like going too far. You chuck it at somebody, it gives them an odor. Impugns their vision for a bit, I don't know. If you hit somebody in the head with bat guano, do they get the blindness status effect for a few seconds? Okay. Alright. Perfect. Which should then mean... Yep, they've already filled up almost this entire room. Wow. Should get this thing like an ambient particle effects or something. Well, this is already starting to be functioning as intended. Yeah, I do see some problems here, but that's probably from where it was just lying on the ground to begin with. Okay. Just gonna make it only replace air. Alright. So the next thing is if it's in a block of guano, if the block at that position is guano, then we want to shrink it by 1 and increase the level of the actual guano. So we want the block state here. And that'll mean that it actually accumulates at a much more gradual pace than what we just saw. Tiny bat, large droppings, yeah, exactly. guano. Actually, we want to get the state value. Get property block guano dot layers is lower than 8. Then world dot set block state position state dot width property block guano dot layers math dot min 8 and state dot get. No, not that value, thank you very much. There. And once again, shrink. And it's pretty worth just plunking that at the end, because I do it either way. Okay, now we actually need to give our guano different shapes so that it knows it's not always good. It doesn't always need to be a full entire block. It won't render visually different, but worth it in the room. Okay, so snow block has the exact shapes we need. And boy, there's a lot of them. Okay. Dare I say it, the guano is starting to shape up. Well, apparently I do dare to say it, because I just did. Okay. God dang it, stop doing that. It's not what I'm after, thank you very much. Just making a quick function to have the guano actually drop its items rather than just vanishing whenever it realizes it's not a static surface. Okay. Okay. So we'll run through, create an amount of guano items that drop whenever you break it. I suppose that does then tender the problem of when it's broken, it... Oh. There is a problem with this idea. And I might be able to show this off, actually. Let's show. Let's see. Because we've made every single item entity that contains guano auto-place whenever it hits a valid position. So it's probably worth having the mix-in check if the item is something you can pick up or not. Because otherwise, it'll just instantaneously turn into a layer. Let's see. This requires testing. I'm also curious how this functions, like, above a hopper. If you put a bat into a tiny space directly above a hopper, will this accumulate? Yeah, we definitely got some more guano into that. Oop. The levels are definitely climbing. Okay, it is possible for us to grab it. At least, there's that. Hang on, let me... Flip. Firstly, it's detecting, or at least it thinks, that the guano is always a full block. So sometimes when it ticks through, it's just putting it on top of it when it shouldn't be. I think this is the part where we need a different model, just so we can see this a bit clearer. Thankfully, we don't need to change this much to do that. Because we can just grab the exact same code that Snowblocks use. Not that one. That one. Okay. So refresh that. Refresh this, and we should start to see the problem. Ish. It's still a little dark here. Hang on. Effects, give, dev, night vision, thank you very much. There we go. So yeah, you see right there? That block should not be there. But there we have accumulating guano. Everybody. Oh lord, what have I created? Strangeness. Okay, so guano. That is currently layer 7. And let's grab some more. Okay. So if I get rid of this, it should all break into a shower. Or not. Okay, there's trouble there. Why no full thing here? Oh, I guess this is not random ticking. That's probably it. Yeah, it's just turning into that. Okay. So if all of that, return default of air. And do that. What's your problem? World block position item stack for iWorld block position item stack. Tell me that's not world? Well, no, you are fine there, apparently. I guess somehow it's not a world? Okay, well, let me just turn the dropping off, at least for the time being. Turn the droppings off, to be more specific, I guess. Okay. If world in instance of world and not world in remote, just to be on the safe side. There. So now it should create weirdnesses. Now if we break the bottom of a pillar of guano, it should turn into a bunch of guano items. But yeah, we probably need to have some kind of an on-ground timer that only goes down when it's actually pick-upable. So if it spends n amount of time on the ground, then it turns into the block. Which is fairly easy to accomplish, so yay for that. Okay, once more. Build a tower of guano. God, there's a weird possibility of just like burying, like having like a dispenser above like an oubliette or something, filling it with guano and just pulsing it rapidly so somebody gets buried in the stuff. Okay. Beautiful. That's actually really nice. Oh, I love it. That looked really cool, actually. The dumbest thing, but it looked cool. Okay, let me just get like a door, because I just want to make sure these bats don't come out of here, but I also want to actually be able to check up on them. They're just making the sound of pooping right now, which I guess means they're technically farting, but still. There. A bit more light in here. They don't care because I'm in creative mode, so that's fine. Okay. So, we've got a guano item, we've got a guano block that accumulates whenever a item drops onto it. Okay, let's just refine that a little bit by having a integer here for, I guess, guano timer. Convert to guano timer. And we'll make it 5. Okay. And let's see, we'll need some values from item entity real quick, because we need to check if the pickup delay is 0 or not. Let's see, is there a getter for that I can just use, or do I have to check the actual value? Cannot pick up. There we go, that'll do. So how's everyone else's week been so far? Okay, so 5 seconds after the guano becomes something that a player can pick up, it then converts to guano, as if it can on a block. Okay. I feel like I also need an on-ground timer. Which I guess is exactly what this is, but I feel like it should also wait until it's actually on the ground. So 5 seconds after it hits the ground, rather. Or something to that effect. But I don't see anything here like that. There should be an on-ground value in here as a boolean. There. What I don't know is how well that's updated, especially when we factor in things that are basically like carpet layers. Well, I guess we'll find out. Essentially, I'm just trying to constrain when it actually turns into a block to make it easier for players to harvest it. I also need to make sure that I set shovels to be the effective weapon for this. Okay. So if cannot pick up or not is on ground, then that timer becomes that. So if it lands on the ground really quickly, it has to wait still for the cannot pick up part to declare, and then it'll set to that. If it gets put in the air again after that point, then still that. That should make it easier to collect with hoppers as well. Okay. Should be a fairly easy thing to see. Is there anything else that I want to add to this? This utterly absurd thing. I've never been in a cave with bats. I have seen bats before, but I've never actually been in a cave with them, so I don't actually know what it's like to walk over bat guano on the floor. If anybody in my chat has this very specific and unusual expertise, let me know. Should I make it slow you down? And in a sec. Or a couple of seconds, rather. Yep, there we go. So give that a few seconds as well, and... yeah. So it's gradual now. It's not instantaneous. Okay, good. Now we can give our rats their poop. Again. So you'll walk into a cave, there'll be bats hanging out on the ceiling, there'll be small patches of guano around, and the occasional, like, guano item. I did like the way that that tower burst into items, and because they all had a little bit of variated, randomized rotation, like direction kind of thing, they actually end up as a pile. That was nice. A randomized pile. I like that look. I've tried to code that for like gravel. Simulating gravel being blown around by the wind and falling different ways. Oh. God, I have to make a... It's just dawned on me that to get this block to look right, I'm going to have to make a guano texture. Yay! I'm still on their 1 minute timings, so they should be making, yep, making the poop. God, I guess I have to make this a casting component like a spell component for Fireball now. Because now it exists. There we go. This is relatively high speed, but you happy, chat? I made poop physics. God, if there's an item as well, like, there's now a possibility that you can encounter in caves and such zombies just holding piles of guano. Yeah, that's what happens there. Does seem to be dealing okay with landing on the piles, so it does, evidently that does count as being on ground. Good. Also, because this because the mix-in affects all item entities that just happen to have the guano item, you can actually, like, pick up the guano in a cave, then like prank your friend by, like, filling their house with guano. Oh, lord. Yep, just steadily burying themselves in this guano. I do like this. As aesthetics go, this isn't exactly my personal choice of what I'd like a room to look like, but this looks natural, for want of a better description. This looks like kind of what would happen if you just let some bats go number 2 in a room for like a week. I should just be using torches because I don't think those will qualify for being a standard placement. Let's find out. Okay. Does a torch count? No, but the side does. Yeah. So I put a torch in there to keep light. But just, yep, that's what I've made. That's what I've made. Okay. I'm gonna be back in about 10 minutes to do something other than programming poop physics. But there we have it. Catch you all in a mo.
that feedback.
Well, that's an hour of my life that I'll never get back. Ladies, gentlemen, people of every shape, ability, and gender, we have programmed guano with physics. We not only made bats poop, but we made bats poop fill entire caverns if you leave it long enough. Oh. Okay. So, we're gonna do something a little bit more sensible. We're gonna make vials shakeable. Because I feel like that's a little more on the wall as opposed to off it. So the plan with the mixer is that the mixer is predominantly an automation kind of solution. It's not meant to be the only way that you can shake things. Is the poop removable by water? I hadn't considered that, Cam. Thank you very much. I guess that's a thing I'll have to think about now. Anyways, as I was saying, previously, if you crafted the alchemical vial, it came with a damage value, and if you shook it enough times, it would fill up that damage value, and then you smelted it. Which is exactly what the mixer recipe does for the different vials. You shake it, and then every time it gets shaken, it checks the recipes to do the next thing. So what we are going to do is effectively turn vials into something that checks its own crafting recipe selection, much as the mixer does, and turns itself into that next thing. Now, there's a potential here that I'm not 100% certain on if we should do. But if we do, it's a fascinating potential gameplay element. And that is, either we make this function exclusive to vials, or we make this a function applicable to every single item in the entire game. Such that you could, for instance, shake a diamond block and it turns into 9 diamonds, or such, just by changing the recipes. Now, the advantage there is that we could make a mixer recipe for damn near anything, and it would work immediately. We wouldn't have to make it just vials. The downside of that is that if anyone else ever has anything happen when an item is shaken, left-clicked, emptied, we're going to be overriding that, essentially. It'll just transform into something else if there is a recipe for it. So what do we think? Do we make this as exclusive to vials, or do we apply it to everything? I just sort of bite the bullet on that. I'm not sure. I feel like we can do it for vials, and then whether or not anything else has a recipe, it'll still be accessible via the mixer. So there's that. Not sure. But let's see. We have a... Let's see. Stop. Item use finished. That's the one I'm looking for. In our case, this will be on item left click. But, actually, there is an on item right click, isn't there? Yes. But we actually just want this. That's the values that we need. Okay. So, we need to go to the mixer. For right now, I'm just gonna program this as being exclusive to the vial. Okay, matching recipe. Yes, please, that should do. Okay, so if world in dot is remote, don't worry about it. Otherwise, let's see, we need a list mixer recipe recipes equals get matching recipes, the stack, the world. If recipes is not empty, then mixer recipe, singular recipe, first one. And then we want to get the output right there. Mixer recipes only ever have one output, they don't accept a loot table. So let's see. Trying to think. Living entity, we can add it. If we shrink it and then add it to the living entity. Presumably there is like a thing here. Not seeing it actually. Okay, so we also want to change that because that's overriding something. On item left click. I presume that's not overriding anything. Nope. Okay. Yeah. Good, that's fine. So let's see. If entity living dot type equals entity type dot player, then let's see, player entity living add item stack recipe get recipe out. That to the general kind of thing here so that only players can do this. Maybe that's what differentiates players from the animals, as it were. I think this can just stand to be avoided. Like, we add the thing, we shrink it, it'll either end up there or not. Okay. Right. So that's our function. It'll cycle through the recipes, find the one that matches, and do the thing. So next, we need an event, because left-clicking is only something that happens client-side. The main server does not know if this is happening. So player event, I'm guessing, yes, good. Let's see. Nope. Not here. I know there's a thing for left click in the events, but I can't remember where it is exactly. It moves around a bunch. Or feels like it does. Let's see. Forge event. Entity? Item, maybe? Item toss event? Let's see. Living. Use item. Nope. Item pickup. Interact. There should be something in here, I'm sure. Know that I've used this before. Use item event is close. Like, there used to be a left click empty or something to that effect. Okay, well, let's do this the hard way. Let's just check for all the players. All the references to players. Oh boy. Worst comes to worst, I'll just check the old code, see what it was. Should be events here. Okay. That's every event that uses a player, right there. Interact, destroy item, left click empty, there you are. Now is that only fire when it's fired on the client, so when the player left clicks empty space with any item stack? Bingo, that's what we need. Okay. And that is a player interact event, despite the fact that it brazenly says that you are interacting with nothing. So that should be player interact event left click empty. Can that be result? What? I'm quite sure I'm looking at it right here. And it's public. I didn't mistype that anymore. Weird. Okay. Get the item that you're left clicking with. So item stack held item equals event.get if held item. I wonder if I can just make it. If we're doing this, we could just have an interface, and then we can make a whole range of things that can do that. That's me. That's me thinking way ahead. Might as well. Oh, not a class interface, please. Shakeable item. Okay, and grab that. As being a thing that all shakeable items must use. So if the held item is an instance of shakeable item, then we send a packet to the server so that the server knows this is happening. What's your problem? Ah, get item, that's why. There. So if the shaken item is an instance of iShakeable item, then we send a packet to the server saying, hey, this guy's shaking his whatever. Packet item shake. Shake, shake, shake. And we're going to want a UUID to indicate the player. That's literally the only thing that we're going to need here. Okay, so if we are on the server side, we actually, given the fact that we see that we received the player, it's not a huge concern, but we're gonna keep the rule here anyways. So let's see, world.getPlayer by UUID message player ID. The shaker. If we somehow get a packet from somebody else, then maybe that'll be helpful. If shaker does not equal null, then item stack held stack equals the shaker dot get held item main hand. Pretty sure that's the only hand you can left click with. Little bit of guarding there. If it's an instance of iShakeable item, then held stack world shaker. There. Add that to our packet handler. There's a little bit of danger to be had with this, which is that this is a packet sent by the player that controls something on the server. Generally speaking, you want to avoid that, because it means that a cracked account of some description can send an arbitrary packet to the server and cause things to happen. To that end, it might be best for us to make it not actually care about the player ID it's given, but just work on whoever sent it. But for the moment, at the very least, we're going to presume that nobody's going to do this in my dinky little mods, so it'll actually still work. But okay, when that happens, packet handler, send to server, packet item shake, event player. Don't want to cancel anything, we're just going to let that happen. And actually under API is where I'm going to put that item, that new interface. Because that means that we now have a bunch of things that can potentially do that, and the API is the area that essentially is code you are free to reuse in your own mods, effectively. But okay. So let's just stick a function in here. Received item shake packet. And let's see if this works at all. If it does, then I can shake a arbitrary vial and it will send that packet. And then we'll check out if we can wash away bat guano. I guess on a grander scale, we could have an item tag that's shakeable. Then you wouldn't need to recode anything. But we would still need to know what happens when you shake it, I guess. There's that. Okay. How are the bats doing in here? Still going. I've set their poop timer to be actually the real time now. Okay, let's see. Bit of milk fats, bit of saltpeter, redstone, water bottle. That should get us a alchemist fire solution. Quite why that's differently colored to that, I don't quite know, but yeah. Okay. So, if I shake this, if I left click, it should turn into something else, and we get a message there. It does appear to have worked, though I note we didn't... Oh no, there we go. Received item packet. Okay, good. This only happens server-side, so I guess that makes sense that it would work anyways. Hooray! Okay. So it's just turned into Alchemist Fire. Grand. Well, Alchemist Fire solution fully shaken, hence the glowy bits. I'm probably gonna add a bit of tooltip to that. To say, needs shaking, or something to that effect. Or needs mixing, or some such. But yay, we have an item that does that thing, and now that it's fully shaken, there's no recipe, so it doesn't care. But I'm guessing I just spammed my chat. Yep, there we go. It is still sending the packets, it just doesn't have anything on it. Good, 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 good. Hooray, that works then. That's one less thing to have in our to-do list. Manual shaking, implemented, yay. So yeah, we could make a item tag for shakeable items, and then it just runs through the thing, and then we could, I guess, just have that be the default behavior. And then that gives us the possibility of having anything be shakeable. That feels to me like an interesting prospect, I guess. So we check if it has the tag. If it does, but it's not an iShakeable item, then it'll do the default thing, which is this, check for mixer recipes. Yeah, let's do that. Sounds good to me. So packet item shake. Else, we do the default thing. Right, this needs to be static. So if it's iShakeable, it can define its own behaviors for when it gets shaken. Maybe it's nitroglycerin, for instance, and shaking it will cause it to explode. Otherwise, we do that. Okay. And I'm actually going to define that as the default for iShakeable item as well. Let's see. Item shakeable. Right, item shakeable. Okay, so now we don't even need to have this in here. We just need to mark it as being a shakeable item. Okay, and then let's go to our item tags, which should be somewhere around here. There we go. Shakeables. We don't actually need to have the solutions in there, but it helps. Okay, so over here, actually, yeah, let's get the tag for it and check, because then we can theoretically disable things from being shaken. So tag, get tags contains, I guess, VE item tags dot shakeable. There. Granting goods, run the data. This is dramatically more meaningful and useful than spending an hour coding poop, but I imagine it's maybe a little bit less dramatically entertaining because toilet humor, I guess. Okay, so the only thing in there currently should be file solution. Yes, good. But it should still work if we go in there and actually use it. In fact, we can now just take that off if we like. Because we don't need to define a custom behavior, it just needs to use the default. Okay. Sorry, this is me being a little bit nerdy, I guess, because this is something which is relatively minor, almost entirely trivial, but taken in the context of like an adventure map or a mod pack, lets you do a lot of really interesting things. I don't quite know why saltpeter is dark. That doesn't make any sense to me, but not a huge concern. Okay, so we get our solution, and if we left click with this, nothing happens. Ah, we have a problem. I presumably have mistyped this. Trying to think, how do I get this, VE item tags dot shakeables dot contains item. That's probably the thing I need. If we can get this working, there's a lot of really fun stuff that we could theoretically implement. Having more than one way to interact with your items is actually really sweet. Oh. That was a lot more painful than I anticipated that crack of my neck to be. Wow. Oh. Let's see if I got that the right way now. Let's see. Is contained, nope, not quite. Item. Shield item is repairable. Hmm. Okay, yes, that's exactly how it's done. It's in the holy water recipe for checking holy symbols. So it should work now. And then we can check water versus poop. Because I imagine that's probably going to be something worthwhile. Okay, so... Hey! And it works. Very good. It's a little wonky, maybe. Like, we can't just shake, shake, shake. But I'm kind of okay with that, honestly. That's kind of that's kind of fine by me. Puts a little bit more effort into it. And then we smelt it. Into alchemist fire, which itself is actually a fuel. Burns... I don't even remember how much. Burn time is 16 seconds. Which I think is about... I think that's about 10 items, I'm not sure. Okay. So I guess I now need to add guano to this arrangement up here, don't I? Yay. And I guess milk fat too. Need items. They'll need texturing, but there they are. Why do I feel like I've forgotten something on this list? Yet I do not know what. Saltpeter, I guess, is another thing. Is it even worth putting saltpeter here? Well, there it is anyways. Okay. Slowly but surely, evening out the useful functional things to the purely cosmetic things. And now, what you've been waiting for. Water versus poop. Is there an empty space anywhere in here? I don't think so. Yeah, that's just guano. Currently, poop wins. So I'll humor y'all for the final 20 minutes or so of the stream and make that not the case. Water should wash away guano. Ah boy, okay. Let's see. Valid position, update post claimant, random tick is replaceable. Don't see anything here that references if it can be washed away. Okay, so let's check the call over here. Tick randomly, hardness and resistance requires tool snow. I think it should have grass sounds, like, first and foremost. It should sound like when you're digging up grass or sand or some such. But it should have about the same resistance otherwise. But I also don't see anything here that says it can be replaced. So I guess it is probably just the is replaceable check. Here. Let's see, where does that get called? Is replaceable. Fluids, fluid utility, try place fluid. There you are. Yep, it's the replaceable part. Okay then. Maybe we more or less just need that exact function, don't we? It's exactly what we're looking for. Okay. There. Quickly tidied up. So if use context item equals this as item and I is lower than that, then replacing clicked on block face up. Not 100% certain what's happening there, but I think we mostly only care of, do we only have one layer? I'll presume that's when you're clicking on it with... I presume that's from clicking on it with a snowball. I've already once today had an occasion where I remembered something as being vanilla mechanics that absolutely was not. So maybe I'm remembering another parallel timeline again, but I think that's for snowballs. We'll find out. God, this theoretically means somebody can build their entire house out of guano, doesn't it? Give or take. Does need to have some kind of lower... Like, if you build a roof, then you can need a block underneath that, but this does kind of mean somebody's gonna build... And, like, you can definitely make walls out of guano. Okay, none of that is 1, so it's not able to replace it. Not able to replace that either. Interesting. But if I try and place this down, yeah, doesn't mind that. So what is it about snow, then? I am remembering correctly that snow layer can be removed by water. Yes? Someone please tell me. Someone please tell me if that's the case. Yeah, everything in here seems to be more or less identical to the guano. There doesn't seem to be anything here that relates to fluids. So is there a function in here that determines if it can replace the block? Can displace. Direction equals down and fluid in is... Oh, it's just checking for interfluid reactions there. Check if it has a tile entity, and then spawn the drops. Flow into, okay. Liquid container, receive... Where is that ever called by, I wonder? Like, is that used by literally anything? Oh, that's for waterlogging. Ah, that's what it is. Okay, flow into, flow around. Can flow. includes a reference to the direction, can displace. Which is just to check to the... Okay, I'm back to square one there. How does it determine what it can get rid of? Let's check torches. Torches can be moved by water, sure. There's literally nothing here that suggests they can be removed by they can be removed by water. Does not block movement, 0 hardness or resistance, light level, sound. How does water determine if it can get rid of it? Is it based on the material? Replaceable. Yeah, I think it is. It might be. Okay, so let's change guano to a miscellaneous material. And see if that fixes it up. God, if that is it, that you have to make an entire material specific to tell that, and that's gonna be terrible. That's poor programming on my in my esteem. But in fairness, no one expected Minecraft to become Minecraft, so can't blame people too much. There we go. But that time it just got destroyed. So we've got a function missing because it should instead drop guano, which I guess effectively will mean that guano that gets hit by water will get like washed to the side, where it will then eventually just replace itself as a block. So let's see, when a block gets replaced, there is presumably a function. I'm guessing is one of these. Yeah, I'm guessing it's get drops. But these are all statics, so that can't just be it. And that's... Spawn additional drops? Could that be it? Yes, okay. So what uses spawn additional drops? I'm guessing a container block. Nope. Is there a block that can have an inventory that does not use a tile entity? Such as creating silverfish. Okay. Yep, there you are. In our case, we wanted to not actually drop anything, but drop a number of guano items equivalent to its thing. Or we could make getting guano really tedious and have it be like layer by layer by layer. No, I think we'll just do this. I've been deep in the tank on how guano works today. Let's just work with this. Is there an empty drops block? Or block empty drops or something to that effect? Apparently not. Could have sworn there was. Nope. Okay. Guess we just don't give it a loot table then. Although maybe I could. I could add a loot table to it. Like every now and then, like you get a bug item or something. I don't know. Okay, so let's go back to, I think it was the snow. That had a drops thing to it. Yep, there you are. Just so it knows to do that. What is your problem? iWorld. There. Okay. So now when it gets destroyed, it should turn into items. Items proportional to how much guano was in that pile. This is a bizarre thing I've made. The next thing, of course, is I can either just leave it as the layer but change the texture, or I can model poop. I can make a block model for various sizes of poop up to an entire meter cubed. Oh lord. I feel like I've talked myself hoarse with just this sheer concept. Okay. And... yeah. Perfect! Utterly ridiculous, but yay. I really feel like I should make some kind of some kind of status effect that just gives you smell particles when you've been walking on guano. There. So much guano in here. I think the last thing I need to do is make it use a shovel. That's about it, I think. Making you able to place it as layers is a nice thing too, but that's not a huge concern. Anyways, to summarize our progress today, we showed off the centrifuge, we showed off the mixer, we showed off the advanced furnace recipes that let us actually have item stacks rather than just ingredients. We programmed milk fat, we added saltpeter, and we also implemented guano with full-blown physics, and also we've made any item shakeable to turn it into a mixer recipe thing. Anyways, that's all I have time for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed. Hopefully a little bit more sanity in the next stream, we'll see. Otherwise, my next stream is on a Thursday. That's probably some more Sea of Thieves with the World of Madness crew. Then on Saturday, we have some Carousel, random games with the patients. And I'll be back for the programming of whatever I get to on Tuesday at 9. Meanwhile, I do make videos on youtube.com/comic, and everything I do is powered by you at patreon.com/lying. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch you all as ever next time. God, what has my career become? Programming poop with physics.